Hello, everyone. It is time for another video. My name is Craig. My channel is Israel Space Chat Space Bible. And again, I'm going to be talking with Adam. Adam and I are doing a whole series of teachings on the history of Israel, the name of Israel, and the works of Israel. Now, Israel is the surname of the Father. I wrote that in the description of my channel. We will be getting more into depth into that in our videos. But today we're tackling a subject that is basically, even if you don't go to church, it is a false teaching taught to everyone. And that is there is a Satan. And we're going to prove today that there is no Satan. The Father, Israel, is one God. There is no one beside him. That means he does the good and the evil. Now, evil is not necessarily evil as sinister. He does judgment. And to an eyes of somebody who's not in Israel, which would be a Gentile, that looks like evil to them because they've taken the good and made it the bad, and the bad is good to them. Now, in Israel is somebody who follows Father's laws and commandments. This is the dividing line between the good and the bad. And it's not racist. People that can't perceive that God would divide uh, people. I mean, everyone is his people and his creation, but there are children of the light and there's children of the dark. Now, the dark don't have necessarily an overall leader. They are dark because they don't follow the Father and his laws and commandments. So I'm going to bring Adam on. This subject might be a couple videos. It's a pretty big one. Adam, you there?
Yes.
Yeah, Adam. I'm going to start off with a few questions, and we're going to work from there. Uh, my first question. I assume you heard my intro.
Yes.
Question is, who is the one that causes all death?
Well, for that, we have to go back into Genesis. But we also have to use the New Testament of John and understand how in the beginning was the Word, which was with the Father. So every time I say the word Father, it's known to many people as the word God, because God is a title and it means creator.
Yeah,
However, I'm referring him as a father because he is a parent. He's both father and mother. He's a parent to us. And this is why he created Adam and Eve.
yeah,
They are the parents, the mother and father, but they're of one person, which is Adam, because Eve came from Adam. But going back to John, the word, which is Adam, was with the Father, it says. And then it says Adam, however, it says word, but I'm changing the word that. I'm changing that word to a name, which was Adam. And it says Adam is the Father. And then in verse 14, it says Adam was made flesh. Now that's an important part because we're talking about made flesh. So it's manifested. There's only one person in the beginning that was manifested in flesh, blood, and bone, and that was Adam. We see in the New Testament when Emmanuel was crucified on a piece of wood that blood and water came out of it. And this is known as the Spirit. Even it tells us in the book of the laws that no one is to drink of blood because blood is spirit.
yeah,
Therefore, and even when a child is born in the womb, they're every woman knows this, they're a blood clot like. there are a buildup of blood first before it becomes formed into a vessel of veins, bone, and flesh. So with
Mhm.
that understanding, we're talking about someone that didn't go through this kind of a manifestation that Emmanuel went through and Mary. Moses went through this. Noah, every human being that came after Adam, besides Eve and besides himself, came in this fashion as a child, born. Adam was not. Eve was not, but she came from Adam. So with this understanding, we must understand that Adam is the Father. Therefore, why did judgment happen? Because he's showing that every image that's made after the image, which is called Adam, must go through the works that he has designed the light and dark to go through.
Yeah.
So Adam let us make, not man, man's a science term. We know there's a name to this vessel, which was Adam. We're not talking about all of humanity here. Not exactly right now. We're talking about one person whom the light and dark were made in, and that was Adam. And then from Adam, we are all copies of this first temple, this first tabernacle, which was made of light and dark. So now there's a separation, which we see through Cain, who was complete dark, and Abel, who was complete light. So judgment happened so that the Father can show, because everything he has said, I mean, what is prophecy? What's the point of prophecy? Is to show that, to bear witness to the physical, because everything that's made physical that we see is made by the Spirit. Therefore, he does everything according to his pleasure to bear witness unto us who are parts of him. So we're not separate from the Father. We are extensions of it.
Yeah. Now, the reason I asked that question is because that's one of the supposed powers that they give to Satan, the devil.
Mhm.
And just a little bit of thought, and you obviously opened some people's eyes, but just a little bit of thought. If he creates the life, and he does say he has the power to take it, we're not talking about another entity that has the power.
Mhm.
And most people, the best answer they'll be able to give you is he's like, oh, the Father gives power to this vessel to do the death, and he doesn't actually have his own power. Okay, but still, you're putting a name on something, and just by that giving it power, when you're ignoring the Father is the one that controls life and death. So
Mhm.
that they, I think they slip up is they attach a name like Satan or Michael or Gabriel or a devil demon type of name or Legion. We could talk about that Legion real quick because people think that that's some kind of name of a devil.
Well, if I may,
Yeah.
um, the best example that the Father bared witness for all of us from the past was the time of Moses. He prophesied through Abraham that his children were going to go through a type of bondage, a type of captivity for a certain amount of time. Now, this was Abraham's time that this was foretold that his people were going to go through something. Then we fast forward into Moses, and we find out that what this prophecy was Egypt. They were in bondage for Egypt for a certain time. There was no devil or Satan that the father was warning to Abraham that would do this to his children. It says he would, I don't know if you can find that scripture. It's in Genesis. Maybe it'll help the viewers so they can see where we're coming from. It was during the time that Abraham was making these sacrifices with these animals, and the birds were going to come down, and he had to protect the carcasses from the birds eating them. And then it says that a darkness came over him, and he had this vision. So we see that even the darkness, which is the same darkness, mind you, was on Mount Sinai, that everyone feared and that Moses was hidden in this darkness. So we see that there is a type of darkness that has appeared in our physical world, which is the darkness that is foretold in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. And there is a light that comes in our world, but the light is not that easy to see. The light is harder to see than the darkness. So we have to understand that, because the way, the
But you
path
want me
to
to
the,
look up like Abraham? You said.
yeah,
I'm not sure where to really look for that. But yeah, Abraham. Abraham. Yeah, I don't know where to look for that. Sorry. I'll get back to the question, like, because most people don't know Old Testament anyway. They know the story of the guy crying out to Jesus, who's Emmanuel, to get these demons out of him, and as the church would say, and have a exorcism basically, because I am filled with legion. Now explain what that is.
I'm trying to look up real quick for that verse, if I may.
Okay.
That's why I'm looking down real quick. Okay, I think it's Genesis chapter 15, verse 12. Yeah, 15 verse 12 is the beginning of it.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to read it?
I'm sure, so that they can understand where we're coming
All
from.
right. This is from the KJV, King James, 1611 version, I guess. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, who is Abraham, and lo, and a horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years.
Mhm.
And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance.
No, so right there, that they will be a stranger in a land that's not theirs. They were a stranger in Egypt because that land was not theirs, and they were in captivity. And when they came out of Egypt, they came out with great substance, because we understand that they were able to grab, you know, as much as they can carry. So they were able to take a whole bunch of stuff. There was no one to stop them from that. And then it tells us that who's judging them? The devil, Satan? No, it's the Father. I will judge them. I will give them great substance, which is a great reward. So we see that it's the Father who's doing that part. And then um answering your question, what you were saying about Legion, Legion means we are many. And it tells us in New Testament, one mind, one body, speaking the same thing. This is also called being a legion.
All spirits working through his creation, good and bad.
Hmm.
Just as we can be a child of the light, we could suffer from injury or sickness or something like that. That is spirits working through us.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean that we're possessed by a devil. The Father is working a judgment on us by the sins that brought that spirit into our vessel.
And then, if I may, this is where Paul was talking in the New Testament, or was someone under Paul that was saying, is the foot different from the hand? Is is the body part different from another body part? So even though it says the light, what does the light have to do with darkness? Is the light separate from the source? Is the darkness separate from the source? No, both light and dark are connected to the Father, because it tells us in Genesis chapter 1, He made the light, He made the dark, He put a separation between them. Fast forward a little bit through Genesis, and it says, I will put enmity between thy seed and thy seed. So
Mm-hmm.
there is this enmity, and we, throughout this time, we start to understand this great enmity, this great division is the laws and the commandments. And
Yes.
that's in Leviticus, 26. It tells us, if you will hate my judgments and do not keep my commandments and abhor them, I will be your enemy.
Yeah. He does tell you that. Probably in other places too. I mean, he will be your enemy. Fear him and him alone. Not fear. Don't worry about me. I'm just off in the clouds. Fear Satan. Because that's what people
Mhm,
do. They actually move the Father away where he's a nothing apparition in the air. And then they
mhm.
fear the devil, Satan, that doesn't even exist.
Yeah, and so the whole point of our um how do you want to say, our battle, or our witness, or where we're trying to come from, if people are trying to find, well, where's the proof that there's no devil or Satan? Look at the book of the laws. Moses, who definitely taught the people Genesis, would never have used this terminology of a devil or Satan, because you don't see any of this language in Exodus, Deuteronomy, Numbers, Leviticus, nor Deuteronomy. What you do see is an entity saying, I have chosen these people from among the nations. And this is constantly repeated, by the way, throughout the entire book. I have chosen these people. I am the father, not just of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. He's the father of Noah. That means he's also the father with Adam. And this is why that means that Adam and the Father are one. Because we know in Revelation there's 8 heads. We know that one of the heads receives a fatal wound, which again was prophetic to Adam. It tells the Father's talking to Adam, saying, thy seed shall bruise thy, which is your head.
Yeah.
So he's telling Adam, there will be a type of generation that will bruise what is the head. Head is a king, head is a ruler. So it's telling Adam, someone will bruise you, will kill you, Adam. And then when we understand that in Revelation, saying, one of the heads receives a fatal wound, which is the word bruise. And then this wound or bruise was healed, and everyone started to marvel after this healing. Now it tells us, if you read the book of the laws, The people who are called Israel, the chosen people, the people of light, are not to marvel at the Father's works, because he tells Abraham, I will hide nothing from you. So to marvel means something is hidden from you. And that when you start to see it, you're surprised, you're astonished. The only people that were to be like this were those of darkness, which are called by Gentiles.
Yeah.
So we see that Moses, even on Mount Sinai, he tells Moses, he's talking to the fifth head. And he tells Moses, I will harden the Pharaoh's heart. No devil, no Satan. I will do this. I will work through you to bring plagues onto these people. So we have to understand, well, how did the Father harden the Pharaoh's heart? How did he make the Pharaoh believe what he had told in Second Thessalonians? I will make them believe a lie. The Pharaoh was believing a lie. Was this done because there was nothing happening on the Pharaoh side? No, there were magicians that were doing certain works that made Pharaoh, because he trusted in them, that made Pharaoh's heart believe in them, that he would not believe in Moses. So we have to understand how these works are manifested in our physical reality. The church teaches that there's a separation between how the spirit works, the spiritual um not manifestations, but the spiritual workings are separate from what happens in the physical. And scripture never tells us this. Scripture says everything that is manifest is made by the spirit. So right there tells us there is no evil entity. It's the Father who's controlling everything. Everything that we see in the physical is the manifested um reaction of the first action, which is the work in the spirit. So is basically, you got to think that everything we see with our eyes is catch up to what is happening in the spiritual aspect.
Yeah.
So everything in the physical is catching up to what was commanded in the spiritual plane. It's not that these are separate planes. The commandment is done in the spiritual plane and is manifested and played out in the physical.
Would
So
you
once we
agree
understand that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
that would you agree that what they call an angel or they call a devil is purely a command? And it can be a command of light, it can be a command of dark, but they are basically a voicing or a command from the Father that we don't see. We put an angel and put wings on it because it's something that our mind can make in our
Well,
thought.
again, it goes back to Thessalonians, Second Thessalonians. He makes them believe a lie. If he tells us in Leviticus, do not make any graven image of heaven, which is also known as the sky, earth, or underneath the earth. So it's telling us right there, don't make any graven image of what you understand things to be, because they appear not as what they are. So when the Gentiles cannot comprehend darkness, cannot comprehend the works of the light. It tells us that the works of the light cannot do the works of the darkness. So therefore, there is a certain type of work that Gentiles, dark, will do, and what they've always done is create some kind of imagery so that they feel that, oh, this is what it is. I feel closer to the truth or God, and this is what I'm going to serve because I can see it with my sight, with my eyes. We of light are to understand that everything is spirit. And through this, we have to go by faith, which means trust. So we have to trust. That's why Abraham is not the father of faith. We must say it right. He was a father of trust. He had to trust blindly in something he could not physically touch, nor physically control, nor physically see, We had to recognize it was working in him and around him, but mainly in him and through him. And this is again reinstated with um, Adam, and but more importantly, bared witness with Moses and Emmanuel. And Moses, again, that's a great foundation we should always remember in all the plagues that happened. How the Father worked the Pharaoh's heart, not a devil, not a Satan. The Father worked the Pharaoh's heart to chase after the children of Israel to go into the sea and to be destroyed in this manner. Again, when they were in the desert, who destroyed them in the desert? The children of Israel. Who, Moses, again, he
Yeah.
told Moses, bring up your arms. When he brought his arms up, who was winning? Israel. When he put his arms down, who was losing? Israel, and the Gentiles were winning. And he had to prep his arms up so that they could defeat their brothers who were of darkness. We forget that the light's brothers and sisters are of darkness. So when it talks about the light loving and teaching your brothers who are strangers in the Old Testament, which is called Gentiles in the New Testament, are our brothers because we all, again, are of the seeds of Adam.
Hmm. That goes into the manual saying, "Love thy enemy,
Mm-hmm.
thy
Right.
enemy as a brother," because he knew, being the seventh head and Adam manifested in flesh, he knew that the works of darkness were all controlled by the Father. So you are being tested by that enemy, with adversary, as a test and a trial because you have gone against the laws and commandments and sinned against the Father. So he's using that vessel like he uses anything he can at his disposal, a, a tornado or a hurricane, whatever he wants to use, he can use on
Mm-hmm.
to you, which you're not your own, you don't call the shots here. This is not your game to say which way it goes. This game was decided long ago. Adam is the only one that could change an outcome because he was the first. He's the father in flesh. Everybody else is a copy and made in the image of Adam, and they are subject to whatever the father wants. I mean, it is the spirit being all is the key to understanding devils and angels. They are all the same workings. They are spirit. Just as you were saying earlier about the water and the blood, and the water is spirit life for a plant. The blood is the spirit life for a being of flesh and bone. Without these things, there's death. And then you talked about the baby being formed as a blood coagulates into the womb and forms a baby. I mean, to know these things is it's great. I mean, it's good stuff. I mean, to throw it in the waste bin and say, uh, "Oh, in the name of Jesus, I call this demon to leave me alone," and you're still in the same darkness. It can go away. It can come back. It can do whatever. You don't. It's all the Father controlling it. You do not have control over an evil spirit. It might like it'll just temporarily leave you maybe and make you think you got power, but you don't understand how spirit works. If you
If I may,
Yeah, sorry.
it does tell us what you're saying too. It says your body is not your own.
Yeah.
Your life is not your own. We are servants. We are vessels. Even Emmanuel brutally said, not Jesus. because Isaiah the prophet spoke the name that would be the name of the seventh head in Revelation. And that seventh vessel was by the name Emmanuel. Everyone should look it up. It says it with an I, though. This is also known in the King James 1611, by the way. That name still is there. Um, and then in Matthew, it says it with an E, and then it vanishes. And you never see the word Emmanuel anymore, and it's replaced by a different name. And people will teach you, oh, he's known by all these different names. If a prophet had prophesied that a child shall be born from a virgin, and everyone shall call his name Emmanuel, and this was a sign that the Father would give. And then when you read the events of this certain sign, you start to see that this sign is actually talking about a preparation for the next temple that's to come. Not in the same image as what you see with your eyes, but in a different fleshly image. But there will be similar works that this next temple, eighth head, because it says the eighth comes from the seventh, right?
Mm-hmm.
That this eighth head, this final temple, will do a work that many false priests, just like the Pharisees, who were false teachers, will claim to be able to do. So therefore, it tells us that the only one that is able to reveal and explain the past, present, and the future, the only one that is able to explain the prophecies and all the blessings and the curses and how everything has happened historically, would be the Word Himself when He's born as a child, just like Moses was, just like Emmanuel, just like Noah. They were born as a child. We must understand this and not say, oh, that was the Father, because He tells us He was in the world, meaning He was in flesh. And the world, which are His people Israel, knew Him not. And we see this through Moses. They complained to Moses, and what did Moses say? You don't complain to me, you complain to who? The Father. And we see the same kind of talk that Emmanuel was using too, telling everyone, you're complaining to the Father. Focus on the Father, focus on the Spirit. We forget the name Israel. It tells us that He's surnamed in Isaiah, He surnamed these people with the name Israel. You read the book of, I know it may be ranting on a little bit, but if you read the book of Jubilees, it tells us how Abraham knew that the heir of his own generation is not Isaac, but through Isaac was his grandson, the heir who the father gave his last name, his house name onto, which we know as the name of Israel. So we understand that the name of Israel is vital, and then somehow this name gets changed to Christ. This is a big problem because we know the name of the sheep was Israel, and the wolves are the Gentiles. So we know that the false priests are not called the priests, false priests of Christ. They're the false priests of Israel. So we're looking. If you're looking for an anti, you're looking for priests that are anti to Israel and the teachings of Israel, not
Mm.
Jews, Israel. So we have to understand there's many false teachers in every sect, Judaism, Christianity. If you want to know who the true teacher is, they have to be teaching on that name, Israel, and they have to explain all the works and how sin actually affects us. Because even in New Testament it says sin is not internal, is by what we see and by what we hear is how sin affects us, because we're talking about certain desires that will lead us away from the laws, which are the 10 laws Moses brought down, and the commandments, which are far more than 10, because a commandment is an order that's given to you to follow. But through even hearing me talk about all that, we see that there was an architecture. There was an architect, I mean. There was someone that built and laid a historical events that built everything up, that built the Gentiles to have their nations. Everyone's lives are to be affected in the way that it is because it built what we live in now. So where is there an entity that's trying to disrupt anything that the Father has been laying down from the time of the beginning, which was Adam?
Yeah, like for me, I like history. I like that subject, and I like it where it's complete. It's from the beginning all the way through. Well, now, when I went to church, yes, you did learn about Noah, you did learn about Adam, this and that, but it was all everything was placed historically on Emmanuel. So you don't really learn this. You don't learn the foundation, and that's one thing we'll always be going to in this channel, teaching you the history of Israel from its foundation, which is Adam. He is the cornerstone that the builders forgot,
Mhm.
rejected. Obviously, I mean, without Adam, you have no Cain and Abel. You have no Seth. You have no Eve. You have nothing. Everything is built on him. He is the cornerstone. And they built their little world all on Emmanuel, which they call Jesus. And they say he's the cornerstone. Well, obviously, he didn't. He was born a baby from a womb. Adam is a manifested man, God in flesh, and he's where everything comes from. So to not know that, you are cutting yourself off at the knee, or whatever they say. You are you're hobbled already if you cannot grasp what the foundation of all this history is based on. And we will be talking about this many times. It'll come back and circle around to that foundation many, many times.
And just real quick, I just want to add
Yeah.
on it before we move on, or I don't know how much time we have left, but
Well, I'd like to
even
wrap it up, but yeah, go ahead with your thought.
even the Pharisees could not comprehend how Emmanuel was the Father himself in flesh. It wasn't until after the death of Emmanuel did the world start to grasp this was the Father who was Spirit from the beginning. It wasn't until after the death of Emmanuel when Emmanuel was showing, hey, you killed the fleshly vessel of me, but I am Spirit. I am eternal. But the resurrection was a comforting to show to his people only that there is a darkness that will come over the world. A darkness, not as something that has to do with the sun. No, because no sign is given. But a darkness of a blinding of the word would happen. And he's trying to comfort his people, saying, hey, on the third day in my time, which Peter said one day is as 1,000 years. So we must remember that. So he's saying that at a day that you would recognize, because he tells us there'll be wars, rumors of wars. So we should know that the third day that he rose out of the cave was not the day of the prophesied resurrection, because he tells them when they ask, well, when is this day? So he tells them there has to be a falling away. There has to be things that happen in the world. Again, no devil is doing this. There has to be things that are happening in the world before, because he tells the Pharisees, you can tell when it's going to rain, you can tell all this stuff, but why can't you see the signs, not of the times, but the signs of my works in these times, which means generations? Why can't you understand what I'm doing in these days that you're living, Pharisees. You can tell it's going to rain. You can see the sign, but you can't understand the signs that the prophets have foretold. Come on. And you claim that you're a priest of my people. That's basically what he was saying to the Pharisees. So the Pharisees had a hard time understanding Emmanuel as a father. Why is it hard to understand Adam is a father as well? I mean, we're in the same situation as the Pharisees were that couldn't comprehend how this fleshly person was a father until they saw a sign. You had to see a sign to believe.
Okay, so I think our next video we will probably go deeper into the 3 days of darkness. Most people have heard that saying and know about it, but yes, they think it's some kind of actual event of darkness and you can't see the sun, and it is a darkness that is a blindness that happened for 3 days. Now 2,000 years have passed, so that would be 2 days. We are in the third day right now.
Mhm.
Just as on the third day Emmanuel rose from the grave, so it's not another 1,000 years. We are in the third day. It could happen right now, or it has happened.
And
So
just real quick, the
oh,
grave. Sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just wrapping up. So if you got another thought, final thought, go ahead.
So I just wanted to back up for the viewer before we get into that next part is the grave, even though everyone understands the grave as either hell or some kind of ditch, the grave by definition means some death, like something where there's a blindness, something where there's a deafness. It is a grave. There's no life in it. So what he's saying in a symbolic sense, because remember that it's not for the Gentiles to recognize all of his works. Darkness can't do it, it's the light that has to do it. So the grave means the dead who are walking even among us now, which has always been Egypt, all these different nations that have been dead to the Father, that were in a type of grave, because even though they're walking and they're living and breathing, they were considered dead. So he's talking about he'll rise from a sinful state. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're gonna stop the video there. We were gonna continue on again. This is a video that could. This next video is about the 3 days of darkness. We could circle back around though and talk more about the Father, Satan, good evil thing. But yeah, we will start off the next video talking about the 3 days of darkness, and I'll catch up with everybody later. Thank you again, and look for us on YouTube. And we have a website, www.seedsofadam.com. Thank you.
Mhm.